Hello and welcome to the Civil KraigD YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about corridors. I hope this video helps you kind of learn how they work and get into some of the pieces and parts that are required to make this a successful endeavor. They're pretty complicated. There's a lot going on, but this should give you a step-by-step walkthrough of what you need to know to create a corridor, and then put it into cross sections and be able to see what you have going on. When I'm working in corridors, I like to split my screen up into three views. One view to look at the assembly, one view to look at the alignment profile, because you're going to have a design profile, and one view to look at the plans in plan view to see if the corridor is doing what you expected it to do. Because there will be a lot of going back and forth, and if you're zooming back and forth, it can be pretty annoying. When you start a corridor, you gotta have three things. You gotta have an alignment, you have to have a profile, you have to have an assembly. So alignments are pretty easy, profiles are pretty easy. I've got videos on how to do those. If you look in this playlist, you'll see a video of how to do alignments and profiles. As far as assemblies go, up in your ribbon, you click Create Assembly. It's pretty self-explanatory. Call it what you want. Your template should be set up. There should be a style that your company wants. It is not set up out of the box with the right code set styles and things, so that is something that needs to be done. I have mine set up, so I will not be going through the pieces and parts of code set styles in this video. That's a very deep dive inside of corridors, so I will have another one for that at another time. But you set those, click OK. For the assembly type too, you can decide if you are doing a railway, divided crown, undivided crown, which is what this would be. We're doing a road rehab, and you hit OK. Place it where you want it, and it just puts this little job here. And the tool palettes that you're going to need is Civil Imperial Subassemblies. If you hit Control and 3, it goes away. Control and 3 brings it back. It's also up here in your ribbon, and it is one of these. This is why I use Control 3, because I can never remember which one it is. I believe it's this one. Yeah, that makes it go away. So I use Control 3 to get to that. From there, you have a lot of options as far as what you're going to put in your corridor. These are the building blocks of the corridor, essentially. I don't use the basic assemblies at all. They don't have enough options once they're placed, so I stay away from the basic assemblies. This one that we're looking at here, that I've kind of already laid out, a very preliminary corridor. We're doing a road rehab. I use lane outside super multi-layer a lot. This doesn't have any of those needs, but if for some reason the road that you're working on ends up needing to be super elevated, you want to have that option. It doesn't give you any extra hassle if it doesn't need super elevated, but it does give you the options to target vertically as well as horizontally, and that is essentially what you need. So I clicked on lane outside super multi, and that brought up in my properties window. This has the information that you can pre-set before you place it. As you see, it's still got it active on my cursor. It's like if I just click there, it would place the object, the subassembly. So you pick left or right, and then you decide how wide you want it to be. Since we're doing a lane, we'll do 12 feet. Default slope is 2%. Gives you all these depths here. You can change them here, So I'll do this one where I just get rid of all these extra. And once you have a pavement design, that is where you would go through and put the thicknesses of each of these different, sub, middle, overlay, top, all the different options you have for your pavement design depending on the project that you're doing. So I'll just give this a 0.5 thickness just for visual. So it puts a road lane to the right going down at 2%. And then if I close out of this, if I hit escape, close out of it, and then click that again, it's going to pull that same window up. And I'll do left. I messed it up because I didn't click right away on the assembly. Place the sub-assembly by clicking on the red line. You can click on the yellow, I believe, as well. I always just click on the red. So that's what it looks like if you don't change any of the depths of the sub-assembly. I feel it's real important to name your sub-assemblies because you're going to be looking at them later in the corridor properties box. And having these named is very integral in being able to edit what it's targeting so that you know what you're editing. It doesn't have a generic lane outside super multi-layer. Instead, I'll call it right lane. That helps when you're trying to target things because it gets real confusing. If you place this without adjusting the properties, you can go to the sub. If you click on that right click, you can go to sub-assembly properties. Go ahead and name it left lane here. The parameters is where you would find all of those depths. Just make it 0. You have to actually click and make it 0. You can't just click and delete it. It will come back as 1 or whatever the default is. Go through here and click and make these 0. 0.5 for pavement 1 depth. Again, when you get a pavement design, it will define what these depths are for each of the columns here. Now those both look the same. They're both named. Something that you will be able to find later. Left lane, right lane, as obvious as you can. I have already created an assembly that is being used in this corridor because I kind of wanted to have it ready to be seen without having to do everything in this video. But the parts that I have done are just a very minimal of the creation. So after you have an alignment, a profile, and an assembly, you're ready to click corridor in the ribbon. So you click corridor, create corridor, give it a name. Layers, again, should be set up in your template. If they're not, then that is something that you have to click here and go through and set your layers. It's asking what alignment you want. This is the alignment that I selected for this corridor here. The profile that it's looking for is the profile that is already ran for that alignment. It knows that there's a EG, which is, it just defaults and calls it surface 1. It's your existing grade. I have a PG that I started to create but did not go through with it. That's why it's showing up. And then ask for your assembly. So this is my test corridor. Test assembly. Target surface. You would put EG on that. And you just hit OK. And once you hit OK, it pops up over here in your corridors list. I have another fully completed corridor also on the side of this road that is a separate project from the road project. Typically you would create your corridor to have road and your ditch all in one, to where the assembly would have a ditch drawn in over here so that it builds it all in one. These are two separate projects, so I don't have them in the same corridor. But the corridor that I created to show how to do the road project is to home and road rehab. So if you wanted to edit the properties of this road, you can click here and go right click properties. It pulls up this big big, lot of tabs, a lot of different options. It's overwhelming when you first start looking at this. As you work with it more, predominantly you're going to be in the parameters, you're going to be in surfaces, and possibly boundaries. But those are pretty, for the most part, those are the places where you're going to be working inside this window. Inside of the window, there's a lot of information, a lot of boxes. I created one. Let's see, what's it called? I created one. Right now, it's all one piece. Let's see what it's. I can't think of the actual technical term for it. If you click on the corridor, it's a region. So once you start splitting that up, they call them regions. The station-to-station splits are called regions. So back to what I was showing you here. So this kind of shows how the corridor is built. This is the horizontal alignment baseline that it's using. This is the vertical profile that it's using, surface 1. These are your stations, start and end. If you need to set targets for existing grade, we're going to be tying into the edge of pavement on this one, so we don't have to tie into a surface. If you have a ditch or whatnot that's daylighting, you'll end up tying into an existing grade surface or a proposed grade surface if it's tying into some other part of the project that has a proposed grade. So it's pretty self-explanatory as far as the way these regions work. This tells you the start of the region. This tells you the end of the region. If you want to edit it, you can edit it just by clicking in the box and changing it to 14 plus 0, 0. If you hit OK, it's going to model the corridor, and then it'll shorten it down to where it ends at 14 plus 0, 0. If you want to do it to where you might not know the station off the top of your head, but you want it to stop at the apex or the start of that corner curve. Click on the line, hit OK, and it's going to pull this corridor back to there. If you started your corridor a little too far out, you can click here. Up in your ribbon, you can split the regions, and that's another way essentially of where do I want this to start? Well, we'll say it's going to hang up on me. Just know that if you're moving around inside the corridor, there are times that it's going to freeze up when it thinks it's trying to hit an endpoint. But it's part of the fun of doing corridors. So pick an endpoint, it'll split that region. You hit escape to get out of the command. Now, if you do the flyout window, you can do delete regions, and it highlights what you're going to delete. You click enter, it goes away, and then it starts wherever you said you wanted to start, whatever station you decided you were going to split it at. So currently, my corridor is running along the existing grade elevation is what the corridor is following. And if we were to add it into our cross sections, it would show that the crown would be right here even with our existing grade. And I can actually add that in to show you how to do that. I've got sample lines already created. Those are also important to learn how to do when you're doing a corridor. I believe I have a video showing how to create sample lines along an alignment in my view list, the playlist of videos. But if you want to add, if you have a corridor created, but you're not seeing it in your cross sections, if you've already got cross sections created from your sample lines, you click on a sample line. Up in the ribbon, you say sample more sources. It's going to pull up a box that shows you all the possible sources. You're looking for your road rehab, and you can make the box bigger if you can't read some of the names. So you click on your road rehab, and you want it to, it's asking what style you want it to see. I only have one style for my corridors. It's the all codes. Say OK, and it's going to add it into your cross sections. And I purposely left this like this so that you would see over here in your cross sections that something is obviously not right. This side is how you would want it to look, and as you can see, it's falling right along the crown as the existing grade elevation. So first off, I will fix this to kind of show you how the corridor will update real time once you've added it to your cross sections. Subassembly properties, go to your parameters and get rid of these extra depths. Make that 0.5 and match the other one. I might have made it more than 0.5. I think I made it 0.75 on this one. I did 0.75. Something that is a big help when you are first learning how to do corridors and you're using these different assemblies and sub-assemblies. If you're in your sub-assemblies properties box, this button down here, sub-assembly help, pulls up a little Civil 3D explanation tab, and it tells you what all these work for. So pavement 1, it gives you all the different codes that is going to be attributed to. Again, I pretty much make those always make them 0, but if you're getting into some real intricate stuff, this will help you understand what all these are. It gives you a coding diagram, and it tells you what they go for. The daylights and some of the other curb assemblies and things, it's real helpful for the dimensions of the curb, because they don't really, it says like A, B, C, D. Come in here and it tells you what those reference. So that way when you're changing the depths and widths of the curb, you do it there. Matter of fact, since I brought up curbs, I will actually pull that up real quick just to look at it. Again, Control 3 brings up the shortcut to get to your assemblies, sub-assemblies. And this is what I was talking about. If you was to put a curve in here, and you wanted to edit the widths of the curve, the depth of the sub base, all those different things, you would click on it, go to sub-assembly properties. But it doesn't really tell you, it just tells you dimension A, B, C, D, E, which would be nice if they did it a different way. But so no, you don't really know what that is going to be referencing. B is, tells you what A is, what E, all the way around, gives you the different sub-base slope, sub-base extension. So all of the assemblies and sub-assemblies have a helper explanation sheet that tells you what all these numbers, how they can be changed. And it's very helpful when you're working with one that you haven't worked with in a while or ever before, because that's how you got to learn. So now that I've changed this, it did not automatically do it. If we look down here, your Tahoma Road Rehab has the warning sign by it. If you right click on that, you can set it. If you don't want it to rebuild automatic, you can just, when you make a change like that, you can click rebuild. And it should go through and update everything. If you don't want to have to rebuild it manually every time, you go rebuild automatic, and then every time you make a change, it will update in all 3 places, or all 2 places. this is static, and your profile you will adjust yourself. But wherever you make edits on the building blocks, if it's set to rebuild automatic, it will adjust here and here in your profile, in your plan view and your cross-section views. So after you kind of get the first couple steps put in and you've got a corridor showing up down the whole thing, one of the next things you'll want to do is target where you're going to have the proposed tie-in to the existing. So in this corridor, I think I'm going to show it being that the road project starts where the ditch project starts. So I will split this region right about there. It's hung up again, looking for an endpoint. Usually I try to click on the outside so that it's not freezing up on me in the endpoint. The bigger your corridor is, the more trouble you'll have with this. You'll need a good significant amount of computing power to be creating corridors that it's taxing on the system, that's for sure. So I was able to split it. You can see there's your start end. It's underneath the modify and delete regions. Click on the region you want to delete and hit enter. It goes away. So to target the targets that you're going to, where you want to tie in, you click on your corridor, right click, corridor properties is one way. You can set targets in here, and I had set a target, which is just one. I had set a target for the first edge of pavement line. We'll go back out and show you. See how my purple lines are ending. They're ending at the existing edge of pavement. If we were going to come through here and redesign this entire road, then you would have proposed line work here that you would also be targeting your road section to. But I have not split this corridor up yet. So what I plan on doing, you can do multiple when you go to add targets. You can add multiple at once so it gets it all in one shot. And then after you split it, it will still be targeting those lines. The way that I prefer to go to my targets is if you go to Modify Region, this is kind of the shortcut window of the shortcut window, but Modify Region, Edit Targets, and this is all one big long region. So I'll click in this region, and you can see it's highlighted blue. That tells you that's the region you're working in. And then for the right lane, I'm going to select the existing topo line work. It's not liking that one. Sometimes it will not select the lines. If it's not a polyline, it does not like it. It's going to make a fool of me. It worked on the first couple of them, and none after that. A lot of times I end up retracing these lines, or doing an end copy to bring them in so that I get a line that I can attach to. Well, I'll just use these first ones for now. So it shows you what lines you have. It shows you where they're from. They're from this XREF. Say OK. Let's see if the left lane will let me pick them. And it tells you what you're looking for: survey lines, survey figures, or polylines. Feature lines, survey figures, or polylines. You can target to alignments. These are all the alignments there in the drawing. If you have an alignment and a design profile, PG, that will be down here. Not for the horizontal, it will be for vertical. This is just horizontal targeting. But we're looking for these feature lines, survey figures, or polylines. So we're going to say select from drawing. Let's see if it'll let me pick the left one. Nope. Well, that's disappointing. I think it grabbed the gas too. Which, if you get the wrong one, you can say okay. I might get rid of both of them. I thought it would tell me which one was the gas. Select from drawing. There we go. We got the edge of pavement on that one. It's not letting me, for whatever reason, it's not letting me pick. It's only letting me pick the one. Maybe say okay and okay. I'm curious if it will allow me to pick it if I come back into the, if I say just start the whole command over. Go back in here, right click, modify region, edit targets, pick the region, left lane, select from drawing, go into that one. For whatever reason it does not like those lines. Okay, well, this kind of lets you know that even if you know how to do it, there's times it just isn't doing what it's supposed to do. So I'm going to abort that, but I will just draw over these lines and show you that it targets horizontally and vertically. So it targeted to that line horizontally. That line is also a it's got an elevation because it's a survey line. So back to it, click on your corridor, modify region, edit targets, pick on the region you're editing. This portion down here is for your slope or elevation targets. So for the right lane, you can pick again feature lines, survey figures, or 3D polylines. We'll select from drawing and see if it'll let us repick some of these lines that it's already worked with. It doesn't look like it's going to. Okay. So it did not allow me to do that. I guess it's a good example of, I usually always draw over these. It takes a little longer, but you can be certain it's going to work. So I draw over and make feature lines out of the existing line work. I'll do one here in lieu of doing them all. Do a quick one. Create feature lines from objects. It really doesn't matter what style you use. I erase existing entity, and you want to do assign elevations. If you're going to get the existing elevation, you select that, say okay. It asks you where do you want your elevations to come from, say e.g. I leave intermediate grade points on, say okay, and now you have a feature line there that has elevations. You can click on it, go to elevation editor, bring that in, and this is the elevations along that feature line. So let's try this again. Modify region, edit targets, click on your region. For right lane, I'm going to remove these two. Now I'm going to add my feature line that I just created in there. It says you're trying to use an unnamed feature line. I always just use name. Using the default template, it gives it a number. That's feature line 1 in this drawing. Say OK. Now for right lane, I also want vertically to be tied to the existing, and that's what the elevation. That's where the elevations come into play. You select that feature line 1. Say OK. Say OK. And let it model the corridor. And if we look over here in our cross sections. It's now tied to the existing surface, whereas up here it's not, because we're not targeting. So those are your, you create an assembly, you create profile, alignment, then you can create a corridor. You set your station by going to your corridor properties, split by clicking on this and splitting out the open your ribbon. If you're doing a road redesign, most likely you're going to have to do a proposed grade so that these curves, vertical curves, are put in to kind of straighten out some of the dips in the road so that it drains the way you want it to. I'm going to look and see what my station of start is. Starts at 3 plus, we'll make it 3 point, we'll put 3 plus 05 just for ease of finding it. Come down here to 3 plus 05. Go to your alignments. I had already created for line Tacoma a PG profile. So I'm just going to click on that and right click it and go to the properties of it. Actually, I'll just delete it. If it'll let me, I'll just delete it. Start it fresh. Here we go. Click on your profile grid. Up in the ribbon, there is a profile creations tool button. Click on that. I like to call my design profiles PG. If you want to go Tacoma PG, that's fine. Anything, as long as you know and can use it, construct things, and pick the right one for your different baselines, that is what you want to go with. Your options down here are what type of profile do you want it to be. I have a design profile that shows things differently than just a proposed profile. So design profile shows the vertical curve elements and things. Your profile label set shows you what all is going to be labeled. We're going to do lines. You don't have to do grade breaks, sag curves, crest curves. So you like to see all that. So you say OK. And then I gave myself a start point of 3 plus 05. And when you're first starting out, you can just go end to end. However you're tying it in. It's the easiest way. Click on your button here, draw a tangent without curves. Go start to finish, and then you'll see where you need to add PBIs as you go. So the button here with the little star, add a PBI, find your low point, add a PBI, come back as you're coming back up, you're going to find the next high point. This is relatively flat, so there's not a whole lot that needs to happen. Find another high point. It's going to want to come back down, so you'll put a vertical curve somewhere down here. You don't always have to have vertical curves when it's as flat as it is here. I probably put a few too many in there, but we're not doing a full-on road design for this. This is more of showing you the steps for creating within your corridor. I will show you the steps needed to create some vertical curves. I always use free vertical curve parabola. It's the easiest one that I found to use. Click your first entity, click your second entity. Sometimes it's finicky about what you've picked. Gotta make sure you pick the left and then the right. It's asking for your curve length. I'll just make it 150. So that gives you a curve, and you can move it up or down as needed within the fit. And when you come back up, you're going to want to put a return curve. So again, this would be significantly smaller because there's not hardly much vertical change. We'll make it 75. If you hit escape, that command goes away and you can kind of move your PBI around. I want to lower that so it's not way up, but I'm still probably going to have to add another PBI in here. That. Oh, I messed it up. I got too click happy. Zoom in, click on your line, zoom in, click on your line. And then give it a length. We'll say 75 for this one again. Hit enter. Kind of see what it does. The idea is that we're matching existing pretty much through here. Add another curve in. Alright, I think that's enough playing with the curves. Once you have all those in, as you can see, wherever I've probably, because I did the full label, it does label my vertical, or label the crest and sag curves. Pull those down where you can see them. Ideally, you're going to want those PBIs to be at even stations, your elevations to be as good as you can towards something even. If you want to edit the grade in and out along this, you want to do it by the numbers. You click on this button here to pull up the panorama box. And as you go down the line, this is 395.26, so that's this PBI here. You can edit your grade in, grade out, and you can edit all your information with the curve length, K value, radius. If you have something specific you're trying to meet, this is where you would do it. If you are just playing with the looks of it, you can do that here with these icons. It'll go in that bearing or go in this bearing, and then up or down with the triangle, the middle triangle. So if you want to, let's move this back just a touch on this bearing. We'll just grab the left one, right one goes to the right, the middle one goes up and down. Pretty easy. Getting those right is not always the easiest thing, but for the most part, you're going to be creating a new design profile, so that takes care of that problem. Alright, so we were talking about that currently the center of our corridor is it's matching existing grade. So now if you go into your corridor properties, you'll want to go to corridor properties to pull up your baselines. The whole corridor is looking at the vertical baseline of the existing. We're going to go to the proposed grade, say OK, and OK. It's going to model it. And then now it flattens it down to a touch below it, depending on where it is in this profile. Through the drives, if you're going to do drive rehab, you can split your regions at the beginning of the drive and then split it again at the end. And because there's drives on both sides of the street, a good way to do this would be to have an assembly that just has your right side data. So you would have a baseline in here that would be like line Tacoma, right lane, and then it would be again the same information but line Tacoma, left lane, and you would have a assembly that would be Tacoma right and Tacoma left, and you would just have an assembly that has the right lane, and then another assembly that has the left lane, and then a corresponding you would have Tacoma right drive, Tacoma left drive, and come in here and split them at the drive. Right click, modify region, edit targets, click on your target, and we're going to tell it to select from drawing, get this line here. It is not liking my lines. I don't know why. It's supposed to be able to get XREFs. It's not doing it. Just make one quickly. Right lane. Select from drawing. Pick your line through there. It tells you it's a polyline. Say OK. Theoretically, you would want to make that a feature line similar to what I did down here so that it's reaching that existing elevation of the drive. That would stop it would target to the edge of the line of the drive. I mean, every different project is going to have a million different types of assemblies you're going to need to build. To give you an example, I will show you the assembly that I built for these ditches. This is the design profile for the ditch that we're seeing here. So I have a ditch built that is flat for, I'm not sure, let's see. It's 2 foot wide at the bottom of the ditch. I use the link, width, and slope. For me, it's the easiest subassembly to use. If you just want a line that you can control the width, you can control the slope, and it is able to be edited vertically in your corridor. You can target it vertically as well. Make them 1 foot flat, and then I guess I should show you where that's at in your palette over here. It's in the generic. There's all these different options for just drawing a line. Kind of a, it's got every option you can think about. Vertical, length, width, and slope is the one that I like to use when I'm creating ditches, or the line that gets you over to the ditch off of the edge of the shoulder if you're needing to get down at 3:1 to a ditch design grade. I use those. This is just a daylight. The daylight function that I like to use is daylight multi-intercept, and when I use it, I just take this 10 and make it 1, and it's got all your options for cut, fill, and things to that effect that make it really easy to use. Click on it, right click, sub-assemblies, name it daylight right, tell it what you want as far as your cut slope and your fill slope, say OK. I think I should show you why I was talking about. I'm not sure if I did a very good job of it or not. On your targeting, the reason why you name your sub-assemblies correctly is so that you can find them in your corridor properties. This gives you an idea of how confusing when you have a lot of regions and a lot going on in your corridor. I have not renamed these yet, but once I have a corridor finished, I usually like to go like in here and go region 1, region 2, and so on, so that this is not, because it just keeps going and going and going, copy, and it's messy. So I like to rename those to kind of reduce some confusion. This is the same assembly. Your target, click in here. This is why you want your things named concisely and precisely. When you're looking to target, you want to know this is my line 1 foot right, this is my line 1 foot left, daylight right, daylight left. If on the left side of the ditch you were targeting existing grade and on the right side you were targeting a proposed grade, you would switch them here. If you have a lane and you're targeting something vertically, you could have, theoretically, you could have 6, 8, 9 different options here for your subassembly, and you need to name them so that you can pick which one goes to which elevation target. So it's real important to name them correctly. We have a ditch here. It looks like a ditch. If you look at it in cross-section view, you can see what it's doing. This is down the center line of the Tacoma alignment that I used for the road. And on either side of the road, you can see what the ditch is doing, tying into existing. This one isn't as deep. Gets kind of shallower as you go, some of these. But this gives you an idea of what we're creating whenever we're creating a corridor. This is what it creates. I haven't done this since I started this video. This is something that is also real important. As you work through these steps and you start getting stuff created, your design profile, your corridor, your cross sections, all those types of things, save. Save, save, save. It is so frustrating to be working on a corridor, get a lot accomplished, and click on a line and something, it doesn't agree with it, and it just can't compute it, and it crashes out. Very frustrating. It is how you get good at Civil 3D, by doing it over and over and over and over, but it is also very stressful. I can't say it enough. Save your work as you're going. I don't have my autosave on real frequent because if you're computing something big, if it's regenning a large corridor and you try to autosave, it tends to try to lock your computer up doing both things at the same time. I have mine set to 45 minutes, so whatever you're comfortable with, but it's kind of a catch-22. If your CAD crashes out because the autosave is trying to go, you're just as danged if you do, because you're trying to not crash by having it saved, but then if it's computing something large, when you do the autosave, it crashes. So if you know that nothing's going on, save out. Save early and save often is one of the biggest things to remember working in a corridor. I was going to show you how I created the surface inside of the corridor. So if you click on the surface, click on your corridor properties is one way to get to it. I'll show you that way first. There's the surfaces tab. If you do it the shortcut way, you can click on their corridor, modify region. Nope, sorry. corridor surfaces. It's the same tab, but it's just a standalone of that tab that I was just in that has all of them together. So I'm going to walk you through how to create a surface out of your corridor. Click this button on the far left. It says create a corridor surface. And before you do that, you'll want to look here. I use the top code, create a corridor surface. We don't have any curbs or anything on this one. If you have a curb, you're going to want to change overhang correction to top links, and it makes the vertical work better. I like to call this PG surf. I usually just call it PG or proposed grade, so that you can see it, know what it is. You want to change your surface style to your proposed or design style, and if you say, I'm sorry, I told you wrong. So you press this button, it creates this. To get it to actually build a surface, you have to hit the plus sign. And I added it as a break line. And then you say OK, and it will create a surface. If you just click this button and don't click the code button that brings in a top code, it will not build a surface, and you have to spin your wheels a little bit trying to figure out what the next step is. So you click this button to get it down here, name it, put it the style you want, decide if you need overhang correction, if you have vertical walls, whether it be a retaining wall or a curb or something to that effect. Hit the plus sign to get your top in there. Say OK. So as you can see, it created a proposed contour all along through here. It's real close to matching the existing contours because we matched them as good as we could through here with this design profile. As you're going down, you see the proposed contours the whole way. If you need to add, well, not if, you will need to add that proposed surface into your cross sections. You do that the same way you did it when you put the corridor into your cross sections. You click on one of your sample lines, sample more sources, and find your proposed grade. That's what I called it, I believe. I'm not seeing it. That's odd. It's supposed to be in this list that's available. Well, there it is. I'm not sure if I just missed it the first time. I think it was because I was looking for proposed grade over here, and it says Tahoma Road Rehab because that's the name of the corridor, proposed grade. Hit add, pick your proposed or finished ground, say OK, and it went green on the very top layer of my corridor. The reason why I say you should put that in there is because if you have cross sections for a proposed road project, you're going to need to see the center line elevation. Another kind of thing that's good to know, I've been working in this at 1:20 because all the other things are easier to work at a 1:20, but when you're doing your cross sections, they're usually going to be at a 1:5. So if you switch those to 1:5, they will display as they're supposed to. And now you can see that the label is where it's supposed to be. So to get that label to read one of them as existing and one of them as proposed, you click on your cross section. Up in your ribbon, you go to View Group Properties. This pulls up another pretty confusing box. There's a lot going on in this box. The band. This is what they call the band elevation. elevation band. So you want to change band. And then the next most confusing thing you've seen today, this is looking at the bottom, but I don't have a bottom band put in there. I have a top band put in there. And so right now, surface 1 is looking existing. You want to make surface 2 look at the Tahoma Road Rehab proposed grade. Apply, okay, apply, okay, and it should update. We'll have to look at a few more of these to see. It did not look like it to me that it's updating. We were real close to on existing, so I need to go to a spot that it was not. Or I could just make a spot. We'll do 5 plus 0, 0. It is not exactly the same. So we'll see if it's yes, it did work. And it did it globally. All the different, that when you go to your view group properties, it globally affects these labels. So this one is 766.6. This one's 766.47 because it is lower based on what our profile was showing. So real quick, one more time, the most confusing thing about cross sections, click on a grid, view group properties, change band, go to the top section view, and set your surface 1 to be EG, your surface 2 to be your proposed grade, say OK, OK, and it updates that label. That, in a nutshell, is the how to create a corridor and apply it to profile, apply it to cross sections. There's so much more that can be done, more dynamic, harder, more splitting of your assemblies into different regions. This is a very basic road project. And if you got into doing the drives, designing those out, you would have to split each one of these at the drives. And the easiest way to do that would be to have a right and a left inside of your corridor, where you would have an assembly that is just for the right and an assembly that is just for the left. You have to create a second. If you go to corridor properties, you would come in here, add a new baseline. In that baseline, you would pick your same alignment, and you would give it a name, call it baseline Tacoma left. It's going to ask you which horizontal baseline, same vertical baseline. And when you pick all that, you would have a new assembly being Tahoma left and Tahoma right. I'm going to remove that baseline because we don't really need it. So I think that is enough to get you started working in a corridor and understanding how to create the entities that you need to create a surface, put it into cross sections, create an assembly, a design profile. That is all that you need to create a corridor in Civil 3D 2020. I hope this helps. If you know people that are trying to learn how to use Civil 3D and stuck on corridors, please send them this video and subscribe to my content. I would appreciate it greatly. Thank you much.